Welcome to the Glenn and Aaron Show. Today we're going to talk about 3 ways you can improve your likability, whether you're going on a date, you've got a job interview, or just hanging out with some friends.
All right, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, do us a favor right now, click on the subscribe button. That way that you will be notified every week on Thursdays when we have new content.
And hot sandwiches. No hot sandwiches?
Well, maybe.
There's a free toy inside.
If you're lucky.
I'm feeling lucky.
As a recruiter, a lot of times I've noticed a lot of candidates will put a lot of pressure on themselves to have all the right information and to have all of the experience on their resume. But what I don't think they realize, and what we often don't realize, is how important the factor of likability is for you to get that job that you want. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but that have actually really helped me in my own interviews. I've always been someone that tries to be very authentic when I interview. I bring in humor. I'm not afraid to kind of be more of a person than having all the right information. And I feel like personally for me, that's always gone a long way for me.
Yeah, you've used likability to get jobs that you weren't even qualified for, is what you told me, like captain of the police force.
Yeah.
Head surgeon at the hospital.
Well, and there actually have been positions in the past where I don't believe that based on my experience that I was probably the most experienced person that applied. But I think that, one of those things where people aren't just looking at you for what experience you have, they also think, do I want to work with this person for the next, 5 years?
Yeah, would I go out for a beer with this guy?
Right, exactly.
Can he do the moonwalk?
Right, well, and the answer is yes, terribly. My mom used to play Michael Jackson songs, and I had a fedora I would wear, kid you not, and I would moonwalk in the living room.
I had the Thriller jacket when
Did
I
you?
was like 5 or 6, yeah.
See, this is
why we're friends.
before we even knew. And then she'd have me come out like with guests, and she'd be like, do the moonwalk, and I would do it.
I can also moonwalk.
Like a trained monk. Can you do it pretty well?
Yeah.
Can you do it right now?
Not on carpet.
Come on, Glenn.
In slippers.
Okay, I do want to see that later though.
Yeah, that's the bonus episode.
Before you go into the space that you want to be likable, whether that's an interview, a date, like Glenn said earlier, being with friends, there is a mindset that you can create that will allow you to be basically your best likable self. So we're going to give you 3 tools real quick now on how to create that mindset. The first one is remembering a time when you were the most confident. Think about a time in your life when you just really were in a moment where you're like, man, I'm amazing right now. People like me, or I'm doing something really well here.
I'm captain of the police force.
I made it. I'm finally captain of the police force. And thinking about, what it felt like to be in that place. And then thinking about the characteristics that you held in that. How did you walk? How did you talk? How did you come up to people when you felt very confident? I know for myself, when I was an instructor teaching training programs, that first day, all of my students were new and they were scared and they were
Unsure of themselves?
unsure of themselves. They were basically peeing themselves on the first day. And then you see someone like myself, the full power and majesty that I come in with, the fog machine.
Wearing a cape.
As captain of the police force. I could come up to him and just, I knew that in that moment, I had nothing to be afraid of. I was there to connect with them, and I assumed likability in that moment. So I came off so confident. And so I think about that. Like, how did I come off in that moment? How can I use that and come off in that same way, even maybe when it's maybe my first day of training or some place that I'm not normally as confident myself?
It's interesting. This is really not on topic, but when I used to audition all the time for various bands, I remember I used to be in the hall where everybody was nervously playing their audition pieces, and I would come out and with just total confidence, I would just blaze through something that I'd really had narrowed down. And it was fun to watch, not in a necessarily good way, but it's fun to watch how unnerved people got. And they're just like, oh no, this guy knows his stuff. And I was just really comfortable and calm because I was really prepared.
Yeah.
And I went in there feeling really, really prepared and easygoing with the judges and just nail it and end up getting, the first chair position or whatever. And the people that were out there in the hallway who are completely unnerved by it end up not doing so well.
That's funny. Yeah, interesting. Would you go by them and kind of push them around? And
I'd shove them in the locker and lock the lock.
I'd
take their sheet music and knock it off the stands.
You were the
Doyle rules.
You were the bully.
Yeah, I was not a bully. We were talking about saxophone tryouts here. I was not that guy.
But in that moment, you connected with your confidence.
Yeah. So what I do for mindset is I envision what it's going to be like right before I step into, say, a party or a job interview or whatever situation in which I want to feel confident and present. What I like to do is envision what it's going to be like when I enter into a social situation. And so I will actually picture it in my mind as I'm walking into the driveway and stepping up to the door. I'll imagine myself coming in and changing the energy level of the party. Because, I've been to parties where it's just kind of mellow and maybe kind of dull, and then somebody shows up, they're like the life of the party, right? They just bring the energy to it. And sometimes when you're at the party, you just can't wait till that person shows up.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I don't always like to be that, but sometimes I like to be that. And I try to think of what is my energy level going to be like? What is it going to be like when I come in? And so I imagine it just seconds before, and then I step into it, knock on the door, I come in, I'm like, hey, everybody, how's it going? And you just bring that level of confidence and likability into the situation.
I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking about like Dwight before a sales call or a sales meeting when he's in his car listening to like heavy metal. Do you remember those scenes where and Jim's like, really, you still do this? I mean, I've done that too, where I've actually listened to like a really good
psyched
song.
up.
Yeah, and it, again, a lot of what we're talking about here is, the mental compositions in your mind match, and suddenly you are in that higher state.
I'd like to make playlists too, like a psych up playlist. Sometimes I have a playlist called "I Know Just the Playlist," and it's just like a bunch of really hype songs that kind of get in the mood for going out.
I'm actually following that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's a good playlist.
Yeah, it's a good playlist. So the challenge we have for creating the right mindset, think of a time in your life when you felt the most confident, or you felt very confident in the situation that you were in, and write down 5 characteristics about who you were, how you presented yourself in that moment that you would want to bring into your next interview, next date, or next social situation.
Number 2 is ask good questions. And this is something I've learned the hard way. I once had the, I would say, gift of getting into a social situation where I met somebody's friend and we talked a little bit. She was asking me some things about myself and she goes, wow, you're really into yourself, aren't you? And it hurt, but it was true. And it was a great wake-up call. It showed me that I really thought that people were just genuinely interested in hearing what I have to say. It turns out I was just really bad at volleying the conversation back and forth to keep it going. If you really want to be likable, have an interest in other people, but be careful not to interrogate them. You have to ask the right kind of questions. So you want to ask them questions about the things that they're really interested in, rather than the usual, so what is it that you do for a living? Think about things like, so what do you enjoy doing when you're not working? What kind of things are you really passionate about? And then when they talk, be careful not to just jump in right away and go, oh yeah, me too, I blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly you think that you're creating rapport, but really you're just cutting them off.
Yeah.
Actually wait and maybe just take a mental note. If there's something they say that really resonates with you, don't immediately go, yeah, I know what you mean, or something like that. Just stop and just make a mental note of it. And then when they're done talking, you can say, you mentioned this one thing. Find a way to dig a little deeper, ask a little bit more, ask them to go into detail, or just say, that really perked my ear up a little bit. What can you tell me about blah, blah, blah? Is it hard to do this kind of thing or something like that? Oftentimes, you will create a likability if you can make a statement about their character based on something they're saying. So an example of that would be, let's say you and I are talking and I ask you about your job, you're telling me about your job, and then you mention something that's challenging about it.
Yeah.
I can empathize and I can say, oh, you must have a lot of patience, or oh, you must have a certain kind of XYZ to be able to handle ABC. And you're showing that you're connecting with what they're saying and you're making them feel good about themselves. And they will come away with the fact that you made them feel good. Challenge number 2, the next time you get into a conversation with somebody in a social situation and you're finding yourself about to say, yeah, me too, and share your story, ask them one more question that allows them to go just a little bit deeper into what they're talking about. Ask questions, and not just close-ended questions like yes and no, but really try to ask more questions. And be careful not to use why questions, because if you do that, people are going to get uncomfortable and they're going to think that you're grilling them.
So I know for myself, I am a classic over-relater. Anytime someone says that they've done something or they explain a story to me, I can almost always recall some kind of story that I had that was similar, And so I'm constantly jumping in and being
Oh,
like,
totally. I know what you're talking about. Like, sorry, I had to do it. By the way, guys, if you're not doing this, this is why your dates are not going well. Women hate when guys just jump in and cut them off.
you're blowing it, dudes.
You're blowing it.
And then we have to come in and
Date your girls for you. You're like, hey, buddy, let me cut in here.
right, I'll be out to dinner.
Hi, how are you?
And I'll kick the guy
How's
out
your
and be
dinner?
like, let's talk about your ex, and I want to hear all about it.
You have a cat? That's so interesting. Tell me more about that.
Tell me about this little person that basically is like your son or daughter. They're not just a cat, and I don't think they are. That last guy did. He thought it was just a cat. We both
That
know
must have been so
better.
hard.
Empathy.
Number 3 is be aware of your body language. One of the ways in which you can feel more confident at ease is to not have like a closed off body language or slouch or anything like that, but to be, the way that you sit affects the way that you feel, right? Mm-hmm. And so, think of somebody who's in a position of power. Imagine that. Imagine how they would stand. They're not going to feel very powerful or very comfortable or very likable if they have a very weak and defeated body posture. Along those lines, one way in which you can really have somebody feel connected to you is by watching their body language. And if you see that they're actually kind of closed off, match their body language. And what you can kind of do is gradually open up. And you'll notice that as you connect and as you talk, they actually will start to change their body language and they'll open up and they'll mirror yours. It's just something that we do. We've got these mirror neurons that cause us, when we're really connecting with somebody, to assume the way that they are also sitting or standing, folding their arms, not folding their arms. And then if you see them shift all of a sudden, what you can do is don't do it real obvious. Don't look like you're trying to mimic them.
When you were in Paris, were there a lot of people who were mimes there?
There were no mimes. So.
I just assumed chock full of them.
Chock full of mimes.
Not one.
There was a store called Chock Full of Mimes, and I did not go in.
Oh, okay, well, that's probably.
I couldn't get in. The guy was like,
see him. Yeah, well, he blocked you.
Yeah, he was locked in glass.
He locked you out.
And I was like trying to throw him a rope and like pull him out, but like he was walking against the wind and it didn't work. Yeah, he's stuck in that box.
Having open body language says a lot about being approachable. When people feel scared or nervous, a lot of times they will fold their arms as a way of feeling protected. Well, that doesn't really make you very approachable. And so having that open body language says to the person that you are someone that wants a conversation. And next thing you see a rapper doing this, that's him being like, I hope I'm okay.
I hope they don't bite my rhymes.
I hope they accept me.
Proper.
The third challenge would be the next time you're in a conversation, practice mirroring with one other person and see how that changes the conversation or your connection with them.
That's our show this week, but before we go, please leave us a comment. What are you going to do out of our 3 challenges? And also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you like this show, hit the like button. Hey, Lucas here.
Oh, hey, stranger. I have a shit out of fire. Would you like to improve your likability? Oh, I have 3 ways that you can do that.